Dan, if I were to believe in materialism, physicalism, that everything in my mind is my brain and everything is determined in a physical world, how then can I have free will?
I think this is the hidden agenda for all of the consciousness work, and particularly the controversy around it. People want to know about free will. They want to protect free will, and so they should. It's very important. But what they also have to realize is that free will is just as hard to reconcile with indeterminism. If the world is undetermined, it's just as hard to see how you could have free will that mattered, because you want to determine what you do. It's really interesting that we use this word determined, and mainly it's a term of praise. We say, she's so determined, and so we should. We want to determine our actions, but we don't want us to be determined in the determining of our actions. Now, I think that people have been looking in the wrong place for 2,000 years and more on this. They've been looking at physics, determinism, indeterminism, physics. They should have been looking at biology, because the key to free will is understanding that free will is a biological level phenomenon. It's not a physical level phenomenon. We are freer than our parts. Our parts don't have free will, but we do. Now, how could that possibly be?
Without adding something extra.
Without adding anything mysterious. So we have to make free will compatible with determinism.
Right.
But we're not going to say that our actions aren't determined, but we're going to show that they're not inevitable. Now, the most natural thing in the world to say is, if my future is determined, then it's inevitable. What on earth does that mean? Compare. If my future is determined, it's determined. That's true. That's just a tautology. So what does the word inevitable add? What does it mean more than determined? If we want to get clear on this, we have to see what inevitable means. It means unavoidable. So then we have to get clear about what avoiding is. And then we can begin to see the biological dimension. Because what's happened on this planet over the last 4 billion years has been an explosion of avoiding. Avoiding dissolution, avoiding being eaten, avoiding starving to death. What evolution has done is designed organisms that do a little bit of avoiding. And there's been an arms race, and the avoiders have become cleverer and cleverer and cleverer. And how do you avoid something? You avoid something by anticipating it and then taking corrective measures.
Right.
Simplest case, incoming brick. You see it, you duck, you avoid it. You say, well, you see, I avoided that incoming brick. Well, was it ever really going to hit you? No, because the light bounced off the brick into your eyes. You saw it in time so that you ducked. So suppose you were determined to duck. Well, then the brick was never going to hit you, was it? It just seemed as if it was going to hit you. What we have to understand is that free will is our capacity to see probable futures, futures that seem like they're gonna happen, in time to take steps so that something else happens instead. Now people say, you can't change the past. That's true.
Yeah.
You can't change the future either. From what to what? I mean, the future is what happens next. But what you can do is change what you thought the future was going to be into something else. And this is the key to avoiding.
Here's my problem. I see at the physics level this absolute determinism of particle and particle from way back. Now at the biological level, we're talking about avoidance. So how does the avoidance help us to avoid the determinism? Because it is determined.
Well, it is determined, but just remember that that's not as important as people have thought, because it doesn't apply inevitability.
I hate to tell you the conclusion I seem to be coming to. I'm embarrassed to tell you, but I seem to feel, if it's all physical, that free will, there's something wrong with that definition, or
exactly.
I can't deal with a traditional definition of free will under either scenario, determinism or indeterminism, unless I add something extra and some non-physical stuff. Then I can get my free will.
I think that's right. I think we have to recognize that, sure, there are varieties of free will, the traditional varieties, which Who cares whether we've got them? The varieties that matter, the varieties of free will worth wanting, as I've said, are perfectly compatible with determinism. Now, do we have to give up something? Yeah, we have to give up some of the ideology about freedom. We also have to give up something, and good riddance to it, about blame and responsibility.
That would scare some people.
I think so. They want to be absolutist about responsibility. I mean, the idea of just in the eyes of God, sin, that has to go. But what we replace it with is still a very rich and familiar concept. And that is, we're not deluded about our sense of our own capacity. We are determined to be the masters of our fate to a surprisingly gratifying degree.